Alright everyone, it's time to point out why critical race theory being banned for teaching in public schools is not in any way a violation of the First Amendment. I find it funny that people that don't even like the concept of free expression are trying to drag this dumb argument out to defend their Marxist CRT. And by the way, it is literally, in part, Marxist. This is openly admitted to by the proponents of critical race theory. It's just not admitted to by any of the people defending it on the internet, or defending it from the legacy media. Here's the thing. First and foremost, schools don't have First Amendment rights. Teachers are essentially quasi-government workers, and the administrators of schools as well. If you therefore are taking something like this and attempting to prevent it from being taught, that's perfectly fine. That's within the purview of the state to decide the educational standards by and large. I would argue that it's fairly objective that CRT shouldn't be taught in schools, because it's a waste of money and time, number one, and because it's ahistorical bunk, number two. You can also construe it as bigoted. I would certainly say that it is, but they pretend that the debate is still out about whether or not claiming white people are responsible for all your problems is actually hateful, or whether it doesn't matter because they're privileged or some other bigoted canard. Here's the thing. Not only do schools not have First Amendment rights, but the people working there have certain limits within the confines of them doing their job on what they can do and say. This is why you can't lead prayer in schools. This is why a teacher in a public school classroom cannot say, okay, before your test I want you all to pray to God. It would violate the student's rights. But if a student wants to pray, by the way, that's perfectly fine. None of these laws and bills designed to stop critical race theory from being peddled to students in schools for being, Marxist revisionist garbage, none of them ban students from learning about it on their own. Students are very good at that anyway. If they have any intelligence at all, they don't just read the books that the school gives them. Hopefully they're reading something several years beyond that level, because the schools always try to dumb them down. Alright, 10th grade class, we're going to read Berenstain Bears today. We're going to read Hop on Pop. Yay. Or we're going to read some screed on Salon about women's studies. It'd be about the same intellectual level, maybe a little bit lower. Nobody's preventing students from looking this up or privately studying it. And by the way, informal interactions, even involving teachers, like off campus or something, nobody cares about that either. Like, do you think when I went to high school, and keep in mind this is Vermont, this is the least religious state, this isn't Wyoming, this isn't Georgia full of Baptists or something, this is Vermont. The Christians that are there tend to be liberal Christians, a bunch of Methodists basically and some Catholics, liberal ones. A lot of Irish and Italian influence, not the most hyper-religious Catholics left in the world. As you see with Benedict, loosely Hispanic heritage I suppose, Argentinian or some shit. Do you think the teachers and students never talked informally about religious matters with one another? Of course we did. Nobody saw any problem with it, by the way, but that's not graded work. If you're going to grade students, you should be grading them based on something that, number one, actually has real-world relevance, and number two, is concrete. Number two, is objective, is actually valid. CRT is not historically valid. No legitimate historian would look at critical race theory and say, oh yeah, we should be teaching this in schools. This should definitely become part of the curriculum. No, the people that are involved in trying to push it what did they major in? Was it world history, or was it Marxist studies? Was it women's studies and feng shui for your minivan style shit? Oh, it was the latter. It's a bunch of postmodernist horseshit, but it's not real history. If you want to teach it as an analysis and opinion, go to a college and have a course in it there, so that people can elect to study that. That's perfectly fine. Of course, I think that the colleges at this point are trying to make that kind of course required reading, actually. You have to take, like at UVM, I think, don't you have to have 6 credits of African literature and black studies and stuff? I shit you not, I'm pretty sure that's part of the curriculum. It's pretty funny because UVM considers it diversity when only 90% of the students happen to be white. It's definitely it's not a historically black college. Let's put it that way. But critical race theory being prevented from being taught, taxpayer funded, in a public school is perfectly fine. The First Amendment, the teachers don't have First Amendment rights insofar as teaching goes. They don't have that purview. On their own time, they should be able to say what they want. They want to. I don't care, by the way, if a teacher gets off work and then walks off of the campus and stands outside with a sign saying, fuck the administration, I don't care about that either. That's, in my opinion, free speech. Courts may or may not agree with that, unfortunately. But within the bounds of school, no. If my taxpayer money is going to fund education in part or in whole, it should not include provisions that are bigoted. It should not include ahistorical nonsense. And it certainly shouldn't be including communism, which is, again, literally stated by the proponents and academic founders of this concept, which seeks to undermine the actual civil rights movement, too. I don't know when the left will catch on to this fact. Basically, Martin Luther King bad, he didn't accomplish enough. Literally, it's self-admitted by them. They point to Marxism and third-wave feminism as being some of the underlying academic methodologies from which they drew inspiration for their theory. Well, be honest with the American people and tell them what the CRT's movement's own founders, you could call them, actually say about it. None of them would support teaching it. Most of the liberals would balk at that. They don't want Marxism in the schools. They've been told that this sort of stuff's not Marxist. That's the only reason that they accept it. They were told it's just liberal. And it's a liberal education. No, don't worry. It has nothing to do with that Trotsky over there or anything like that. Stalin had nothing to do with this curriculum, they say nervously. Well, they did. It's self-admitted. That's about all. Peace out.